Continue. Okay, so it's 6:03. This is the special meeting, Port Committee meeting agenda. We're welcome and called to order. Attending is Pat Nave, Craig Goldfarb, Jason Herring, and Christian Guzman. Public comment on non-agenda items. I guess that's where you come in. Christian.
Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for coming. I think I hear a slight double feedback, so I'll try to fix it if it's on my end. But anyway, just wanted to thank everyone for coming. And there was a scheduling issue. I apologize for mishandling the agenda email. Sometimes we send emails and there's not an attachment when we think there's an attachment, but thanks for everyone's patience, and I appreciate that you're here tonight. So let's move forward. Good.
Okay, great. Any other non-agenda items? Public comment? So it's just you, Jason, and Pat. So if you have any public comment.
Diana's around. I think, she's always got something she wants to convey to people. I don't know if she's online
She's
or
not.
Okay. What she says, I just heard her down the hall. She says she is on, but let's move along because we got stuff to do.
Yeah, no, I'm looking on here. I'm not seeing her. So maybe she's on attendees. Yeah, she's on attendees. Oh, she's got to raise her hand. So, okay. Neighborhood Council and President Chamber meeting update. Let me see. As per usual, this was on mostly on the containers in the port. I can show you. And they were pretty. They're not owning up to what's happening out there from everything I can tell and from what I'm hearing from the longshoremen and everything. And I did make some notes on this. And there was two, David Lebetique did a, let's see if I can share this. Share.
I've got it up on my screen. It's in the support documents.
Yeah, no, I have it in the support. I'm just trying to do the share.
Okay.
Oops, that's not what I wanted. Okay. Oops. Okay. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry, you'll have to bear with me while I figure out how to move this up. Share screen. Host. Let me get the agenda meeting. To the post. They were talking about the spill, and that was basically in our backyard, or was further down, and it just moved south. They were talking about it wasn't a lot of gallons, it wasn't hundreds of thousands like everybody thought. They went on. There's a big problem on Anaheim and McFarland. You hear it in the police reports also. They gave out over 500 parking tickets over there. Miss Swanson asked who got the tickets, and it was the shippers, the owners, whoever they could find to ticket. The thing about you can check the PowerPoint out if you got any questions. I'll see what I can do. But it was just the port's congested. They were saying, oh, 24/7 is gonna fix it. And I went and said, well, everybody I know, they don't open their warehouses 24/7. They can't. They're small people. The big guys can. What about the small guys? And They don't have trucks 24/7. They got the whatchamacallit, trains to go 24/7, but I don't know if that's moving enough. Thomas Norman has just joined us.
Yeah, sorry, I was on the wrong link. I sent a question, but I figured it out now. So now you guys can see me. I guess I can see you.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so I'm talking, I'm not checking the other side. Okay, then, well, after that, I told them, I got customers waiting up a month for containers, and they says, oh, y'all, they're moving in, 6 to 7 days. I was just on the phone to a customer of mine. He had 3 containers come in November 2nd. He got one of them today. He doesn't know when he's gonna get the rest. So they're looking for the infrastructure money. They've already looking forward to getting it. They're talking about workforce training center, more cargo support stuff, funding for zero emissions. They're still working on Cabrillo Way, Berth 44's repair facility. The next year, they're doing the Outer Harbor Cruise Terminal connectivity plan to be released this week. Pat, was it released? You're on mute.
Diana says the RP was released, but the plan won't be released until it's written, and that'll be 6 months from now, at least. So
Yeah,
I think E is what they would be doing, the consulting contract.
well, they said they said maybe I got it wrong, because they said the consulting contract was gonna be done in January.
Yeah, and then I would guess that in item 3D there, the connectivity plan to be released this week, probably the initials RFP, so be connected to the plan RFP to be released this week. I think that's where the things are.
Okay. Yeah, it's still, there's this like big disconnect with them with it's like they want to make this look like it's a rosy picture. And I keep looking out my window and I'm out there and I just see all the containers stacked up.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you a question on 2E. The railroads are working 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
One way it's really easy for me it's something I've been watching for years and yelling at the port about was railroad horn noise.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a pretty easy way to see if they're really working 24/7 because they got to blow, 2 longs, a short and a long every time they come to an intersection. And I don't hear that at night. I hear it in the daytime sometimes. So I'm really wondering if they really are taking the cans off the docks. I mean, the docks just look like they're piling up like crazy.
I'm in the same, I don't understand. Nothing seems, I see trains out there. But hey, when I bring the dogs in like at 1 o'clock in the morning, I can hear it. It's not quiet. Used to be I could hear the dog pound.
Yeah.
Down the street, the dogs barking at night. It's noisy. I mean, it's 24/7. I can hear the port, even over the freeway.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hey, let me ask you. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, ask.
Oh, on 2D, why some people are waiting for a month to get a container. When you talk to your customers and stuff, what I'm thinking about is at some point or another, it seems to me that right now the docks are like storehouses for inventory, and everybody's short on inventory. The shelves are almost empty at Target, and what's going to happen when all that gets released? Is it just going to be an inventory glut everywhere?
My customers are all manufacturers, so they're all crying because they don't have enough product.
Yeah.
And I don't see, I mean, maybe the Target here isn't a good estimation because they've been doing stuff, but they had Christmas stuff out before Halloween this year. So I'm not, and what I've been told is they had the right, by now, they always have the stuff in for Christmas. They've had this, they have to advertise for catalogs and stuff like that. They have to have the stuff in stock before they can advertise it.
Yeah.
And they've been readily advertising. So the Christmas stuff is in stock. I mean, people are buying early because they don't think it's in stock. But
June, July, June, July are typically, or used to be anyway, when I was still working, was June and July were when the Christmas shipments were coming in from the Far East. And so maybe some of that got in already and is available, but the follow-on stuff certainly isn't. You're right there. Anyway,
I think what what my guys are all complaining about is, everything the container prices went from like 4,500 to as much as some of them we're getting quoted 20,000.
Yeah.
And that's, and we're the ones who are ending up paying for that. So I think it's still touch and go. So.
okay, I'm certainly ready. I don't have any more questions on the president's meeting.
Cool.
Item.
Okay, well, we did discuss there, the port, the discussion on the port traffic situation and container movement issues and on the neighborhoods and local manufacturers. Does anybody have anything to add there? Okay. Okay, number 5 is discussion on environmental impact of ships waiting 150 miles offshore.
Mhm.
So this was sort of weird to me that that so many ships, that they would put them, you can't anchor 150 miles offshore. So they're going to be steaming around there and they're going to be burning bunker fuel and everything. And that's going to be coming back on shore. So that's why I put it in there, whether we wanted to comment about what is the environmental, if we wait for them to come out with the stuff, we're going to be behind the boat. So I was wondering whether we would be able to, contact some of the agencies and find out what's the repercussion about being off, all those ships sitting offshore. There's 85. They said there were 85 ships in port today.
In port.
In port.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't. Are you finished? I did have a comment on this.
Go.
I Googled just local impact, air emissions impact of ships waiting 150 miles offshore. A whole bunch of stuff came up. I didn't read them, but there are some articles. Journal of Commerce had one. Earth Observer had one. Had an article on it. NBC News had an article on it. I didn't read them, but that's a good question. I'm wondering if, and this is really kind of a comment on numbers 4 and 5 both, and that is, I'm thinking maybe it's an idea would be to have some kind of a word escapes me. Have maybe the 3 port committees or the 3 neighborhood councils together sponsor a thing for the community that says, hey, let's get some answers on these issues of air emissions for offshore ships and container movement issues where, the port people can come in and some commerce people can come in and lay it out to us. Because people have a lot of questions about it. You're certainly right about that.
Yeah, I think we need to do something on our end, but I've been talking to the other port committees. I just haven't been able to get them to get together. And I think especially what we need to do is get, since Wilmington's terminal island, we need to get them in on it.
Are you guys familiar with Purple Air?
No.
They do air quality monitoring. You can buy a home device, and I have one. There's sensors all over. A lot of people in San Pedro have them. You can kind of watch and track point pollution data from all around LA, but especially around the port since it's of our discussion. It's pretty interesting to look at.
What
I
is it?
think somebody mentioned that to me. I looked at it, but I hadn't done anything.
I can show you. I've got it up here if you want to take a look.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to be allowed to screen share.
Okay, how do now I need to figure out, do you know how to do that?
I think you have to make me a co-host, and then you probably have to stop screen share.
Okay, let's see if I can figure out how to make you a make co-host. Yes, your co-host. Your co-host now.
So green is good. Well, let me turn off. Anything with a black circle is an inside is indoor. So let's adjust it outdoor. Oops, that's the device. There's a way to filter it to turn off the outdoor. Anyways, ignore the black circles because those are indoor air quality. But yeah, these are current measurements from sensors people have deployed outside their home. Green is good, and we actually have had a lot of green days in the past. When we had a lot of the fires, I was looking at this to judge whether I wanted to go jogging or not on that day, because if the air quality is too bad, I'm not going to go running. So this is actually pretty not great for right now. Usually in the evening it clears up a bit, and we're in the 20s to 40s, but it's still relatively bad.
So what do the numbers mean?
Parts per million
Okay,
Of what?
of PM. Let's see that.
it's particle size,
Yeah,
measurable
yeah.
particles.
Yeah, it's
I see. I guess my
PM 2.5. There you go.
oh, okay. Those are the really,
That's my house and my sensor right there.
yeah, PM 2.5s are the ones that can pass through the membranes to your brain,
Yeah, just the bad ones.
your lungs, and then to your brain. So, yeah, that's wow.
You know, this may be the answer. Years ago, we talked about putting up some sensors around town. Maybe this is one of the things we should
They're
look
not
at
that
doing.
expensive. If people want to grab some more of them, they're not that expensive. Like
Yeah, no,
$150.
I mean, this is something that we had talked about doing as a neighborhood council, maybe, you know, because we could deploy some around our council area and say, look, hey, this is what we're getting. You know, I mean, if you look at, I put in the, from Canon, the stuff on the, you know, the air and all that stuff, and I'm looking at it, and they keep you know, comparing it to 20 years ago to now. So it looks really good, but if you look over the past 5 years, it's not showing so well. But this is interesting stuff. This is maybe what we.
Jason, do
It'd be
you
great to have. Pardon?
remember what yours cost? 'Cause I haven't-
It wasn't that much. It was like a couple $100.
They're 249 and 279, depending on the model. I'm looking at them now. I do think this is interesting. I also wanted to share at Dominguez Hills, my house was one of the houses in Pedro that environmental science professor, he did a study, he monitored about a month and a half ago, and he just monitored my house for this week, but he did others. And so when he gets his results, you know, if this committee is interested, you know, Chair Goldfarb, you know, I'd love to have him just share what he found, right? Because it's state data, but I think we might be pretty interested. And I was really interested in this week, given all the extra traffic, what you're saying, to kind of test that hypothesis of how bad it is. And one thing I noticed today on my window, when I went into the university, my window weather actually had a number 100 and something. I'm like, it's not 100 degrees. It was actually a warning of air quality in Carson where I was. So, so anyway, just a little bit of the,
Yeah,
you know,
I think that's what I think we need. I agree with you. I think we need to be looking at that stuff. And the other thing was, I mean, because I was talking about the noise levels, it's got to be all over San Pedro how noisy it is.
You know, can I interrupt a minute? I'm thinking, you know, the agenda says anything on the agenda could result in a motion. I'm thinking maybe a motion is appropriate for doing something on acquiring a few of those things for use in our neighborhood council area. What do you guys think?
Like in the public places, like the Peck Park location or other city properties?
Well, or volunteers, you know, the people, you know, board members or something could put them on their house. We could space them out, maybe pass them around so that they would spend a month or two in each area or something like that. Because I don't know how much money the council has available, but it's just the idea, you know, following up on the idea of having some of them in our area and then reporting on it occasionally. I think it would have an impact on the port when they found out the locals are monitoring the air quality.
It'd be great to get a few more sensors closer to the port so we could see how much worse it is right down here, you know, on Harbor and maybe some in Wilmington if we could get Wilmington involved.
Yeah, I think people are important. Put one by a school, for example.
Maybe each school, that would
Schools are a good idea, yeah.
if every school saw what their number was and saw what their little kids are breathing.
Yeah.
Actually, why doesn't every school have one like this? I mean, it's
Well,
nothing for their budget.
The,
I mean, well, schools are a thing. I would say, let's make a motion to purchase between 2 and 4 of these to be placed
as appropriate.
as appropriate, and I would say in Northwest, but as appropriate.
Sure. I'm
I'll second it. Can I second it? Just be specific. Chair Goldfarb, just make it 4. Let's make it for 4.
yeah.
Or
I'll
purple
second.
air, okay. So, well, Pat, you made the motion, basically. Motion by Pat,
You know, just a point of information.
seconded by Mr. Thomas?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay, passes.
Alright.
I mean, I hope that maybe we can find something, because this is something we discussed, I'm sure Pat can recall years ago about the noise pollution and the noise levels.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe we can find something similar, because it's, I mean, I can hear it from here. I even have my headphones on and I can hear the port noises.
Yeah. Well, can you hear me? I'm getting messages that my connection's unstable, but can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you fine.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, the Harbor Community Benefits Foundation, which was established to receive mitigation monies from the port and everything, one of their first projects they did was to address particulate matter in the schools in Wilmington.
Pat, we lost you.
He looks sort of like Kilroy, you know, just his nose and up.
Pat, I can't even tell you talking because it looks like he's frozen.
Yeah, ever since he got this new laptop, he crashes like at least once a meeting.
Oh,
Do either of you guys know how loud the train is? I'm looking at meters now because I kind of like these ideas. And there's one that says it actually tells you when you should have hearing protection. I don't think it's that loud, 90 decibels, but how loud are the trains for people who are close? Do we know?
there's something that strikes me that says like 85, but
Well, that's pretty close to this limit for
yeah.
the OSHA stuff.
I mean, it's funny because I've been talking to people, you know, on the phone sometimes, and because I'm real close to the railroad crossing where underneath the freeway, and not, well, all the major crossings which would be underneath the freeway, the other side of the freeway. So they would hear it here, and then they could hear it a moment later at their house, because they would hear it faster through the phone. But that's one of the thing that's really, I mean, the noise level. Cause Jason and Tom, you're further over the hill. How much do you hear?
At night, I can sometimes hear it. It's almost romantic at the volume we have. So it's not a nuisance, but we can hear it.
I think it's borderline nuisance. I find it less romantic.
I mean, you should sit in your house and listen to hear them when they drop the tops, the lids. They drop these huge lids and they just go boom, boom, boom.
Well, that I don't like, but the rhythmic, is kind of, I don't know, nostalgic.
Yeah, I can hear when they're pulling when they have the loud beeps when they're pulling stuff off the containers. Cause that right there in front is China shipping from me. So I could see the cranes unloading and then they have, I think the top loaders do the same thing. So it's very bizarre. So I think we should also, I mean, I'll do some research. What I was wanting to do is, like Pat was saying, is we start researching on the, let's see, I'm just checking to see if Pat's came back on now.
No, I'm in Diana's office looking over her shoulder.
Okay.
She's my computer just said that my connection failed, so I don't know.
I can
get back on.
I can promote her to panelist if you want.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Pat, you need a new computer.
But less new than the one that got messed up. And so Chair Goldfarb, I like the idea. I don't see anything connected to the internet that's inexpensive, and even Granger one is like 300 a meter. But if the port has this obligation to mitigate, maybe that's a proposal for them to install these, in places closer where it's really bothersome. I mean, I think we should go with data. I always like to make decisions, don't just complain because one person, says,
Yeah,
that.
no,
I think we can show everybody within a certain radius is really annoyed by this, right? And that's one of the things I've kind of got feedback from the community is, try to make some practical changes. This is bothering people. Is there anything we can do about it? I don't know, but hopefully.
Well, we were covering this years ago with China shipping, because they were coming up and we were saying, you need to, it's noisy there, you need to switch to, quieter things like electric and stuff. And they said, oh yeah, and then did nothing. So I think this is somewhere, and it's sure at a university, is there somebody there that may be willing to work on a study? Maybe we could do something where we could get some money from the neighborhood councils to get a study done.
Yeah, let me try. We're only 20% back, so there's only a handful of people like this Tian Zhu who did the air monitor. But
This would be appropriate for the
give me till February
benefits.
again. Yeah, I will reach out, and there's very likely someone.
The port has done a number of noise studies over the years. They even had one on the balcony outside our bedroom for a while. There's a bunch of good researchers here. Tom, you're one of them, and Jason, you're another one. You might want to take a look at the municipal code noise ordinances, because there's some really specific stuff in there about the allowable levels. And I'm pretty sure, and I know the rail horn noises violate the city's noise ordinance. So just as a point of reference, you might want to look at those.
Oh, it's funny. The time I do hear the train is when there's not supposed to be any noise. There's supposed to be no loud noise between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. on weekdays. Or maybe here on the weekend.
Well, the rail lines have a right to and a requirement to blow their horns unless there's a quiet zone that's been established. So that's a remedy for that specific kind of noise that the port has never instituted. There's 58 quiet zones in the state of California, but only one in the county of Los Angeles. It's out in Glendale. So
That's pretty far. Okay.
it doesn't do us much good, does it?
Yeah. Does anybody willing to do some research on the looking up about the ships being off 150 miles offshore? At least, find the resources and send it to all of us and we can start looking at it and seeing what we could prepare.
Maybe Craig could do that.
Excuse me.
Well, I had a list of links to articles and stuff on it. I don't know if that's the kind of research you're looking at.
Yeah, if you can give me that, give us, if we send that all out, then each of us can start looking at this stuff and then we need to come to with some consensus of, what to say. Usually we wait for them to come up with something and then we're following. I think we'd be better off as saying, look, you put this out there and this seems to be a bigger problem or not as big a problem as we thought it would be. So that would be great, Pat. If you can do that, then we can look at it and make that a subject of the next meeting.
Well, as context, I mean, in formulating the federal implementation plan under the Clean Air Act some years ago, and then also in drafting up the Clean Air Action Plan and its several revisions and amendments since then, once you get outside the 3 mile and 12 mile limit, there's very little jurisdiction, number one, but they have approached it in the past by saying that, when you get within 25 miles of the port, you have to switch to low sulfur fuels and you have to turn your engines off and go only certain speeds and things like that. And I don't know that they're doing it. If they're just idling out there at 150 miles off, like you said, they can't anchor out there. So are they using their main engines? And if so, are they using the low sulfur fuel or are they using the bunker fuel, which is really dirty? I can look and see if we can find articles that address that, but if not, maybe we need to get.
My guess is they're using the bunker fuel because they're not going to be sitting on a lot of, the
Yeah.
more expensive fuel. I mean, and maybe that's why they made it 150 instead of 125.
Well, the thought was at the time that if they adopted these regulations, that they had to have low sulfur fuel if they were within 25 miles of the port and stuff, then they would eventually switch over and they would have it all the time, because that was what was happening in Europe around Rotterdam and some of the other ports there. But I don't know that it ever caught hold, and they still may be using the bunker fuel out there. I'll look and see if I can find something. We're getting ready to go out of town until next Tuesday, so this will probably be after I get back from that.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, we got some time to work on it, but I thought when I saw that it was within something that we should be talking about. Okay. Is there anything else on that subject anybody want to discuss?
No, how are we doing on time? Are we trying to get out of here by 7?
Oh, no.
7 to 7:30.
Oh,
Reconfirm that the third Tuesday of the month works for everyone. I have no problem with this, but I'm gonna make the meeting, Christian works to 6, so I'll make the meeting for 6:30 instead of 6.
yeah, yes, as long as Christian, I was afraid that we we're cutting him out of the committee. I was concerned about that, but Christian, is he still online here? Is he still with us?
No, I think he's trying to no, I don't see him anywhere.
Well, if you talk to him and he can make the meetings,
Yeah, if
6:30?
not, then we'll come back and try and do something else.
Okay.
Okay,
My computer's up on that.
discussion of tracking of and following a PAPE and additional comments and inquiries on the program. I posted, I posted from the PowerPoint. I got them to send me the Excel spreadsheet, but of the PAPE projects, but there's nothing, that we can really comment on it, but let me see if I can get it up here and share it. Okay. Are you seeing it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I figured rather than write up the whole spreadsheet myself, get the spreadsheet from them. And then we can start start looking at this. But it was in the meetings I saw, which was this, and I did go to one of the port things. They seemed to be pretty clear that they knew they had that these budgets were not reflective of the money that they were going to be getting in, because this has been a bumper year, and they were talking about that they would be applying more money.
Well, you ready for questions and comments?
Go ahead. Go for it.
One of the other committees is working on something. I think it might be planning and land use. Because the issue with the paper, for me anyway, is how they compute it and what they add in and don't add in. For example, on the top line, if they once they calculate the 10% profit and they allocate, let's say they allocate 10 million to San Pedro, and then they go out and they get a grant from somebody like Metro, which they did for some things, about $7 million. Rather than make that additive to the PAIP funds, they deduct the port's contribution to that fund, so they take it back as a credit. That's one thing that they do. I mean, and there's three other things, and I think that I'm not sure where it's coming up. I think it's coming up at the board in some meeting, some report where the board is being asked. The letter from the neighborhood council asks for certain specific things to be done with the PAPE, and that's, that is an example of one of the items that's on that. Craig, and I think to me those are the areas that really are the kind of hidden problems with the PAPE program. There are two commissioners that I have been told are working on it too with port staff, because they're not happy with the kind of feedback they're getting from people in the community.
Which commissioners?
I think Pelosi and Middleton.
Okay. I'll reach out to Anthony. We used to be friends.
Well,
So,
there's stuff that I know he's already asked some questions and everything. I don't know what questions exactly they are. Diana probably has a better idea. But I don't, from what I know of what they were concerned about, I don't think they're really working in the weeds on it. I think Anthony was trying to get something that was affirmative and it would last, because.
yeah, I thought he asked, if I may, I
Yeah.
thought from what I heard that he had asked that they make the PAPE, the 10% permanent, not just that they apply it and then say, oh, we'll do this for 10 years, but
Yeah.
that 10%.
Change their mind later, yeah.
I'll do some research on that, and I'll contact Anthony and see what he has to say. What I noted about it is there's nothing in Northwest. Out here they did, because I brought up when they had shown us this that about the park, the strip
Yeah.
park, and they says, oh no, that's coming from China shipping money.
Right.
And I said, okay, so why aren't you doing it? Because you've had that money forever.
Right.
So they came back and I said, well, when are you going to do it? So they said, well, we're going to put it out next May they're putting the RFP out and to start work in November.
Yeah, planning and
I-
land use have been working on that for a long time with them, sitting down with the designers, and they've had a number of design charrettes and other things. It is frustrating. And it's frustrating that they took $1.5 million of the 5 million for the first part of it. And it should have been 3.5 million, but now they're crying the blues about how much money they've gotten. I think they've taken some for administrative expenses. Why don't we just let them go ahead and work on it and follow up on it? Otherwise it'd be.
No, I mean, I'm gonna ask them for an accounting of all the China shipping money. They've got a request process, so maybe that'll be worth getting. That's how I got this, was requesting it from them, because I kept asking Augie, and he stopped looking at me like the world, like he had no clue what I was asking about. I says, well, and he kept giving me the PowerPoint, and I said, well, I don't want to recreate what they did here. They've already done it.
Well, the China shipping stuff is one of the other points on the PAIP. I think it's one of the specific things that's going to be added in probably by floor amendment at the board meeting, because it came up with the Wilmington Youth Sailing Center. Craig, that's another of the China shipping projects, and there was something like there it is right there, 1.2 million for the Wilmington Youth Sailing. So why are they taking it out of the PAIP? Excuse me, when there was a $5 million grant out of the China shipping settlement for it. And
Oh, that's a good point.
well, it gets worse from that. They've been dinging that fund for administrative overhead costs and everything like that. And some time ago, I was in a meeting at the port with them, and I said, okay, now what are you going to do about the interest, Joe? And it's been over 10 years. Where's the interest on the money? And it was like somebody dropped a brick on the head of the city attorney that was sitting in the meeting. But that's, they should be doing that, and they shouldn't be taking PAIP money and paying off their obligations under the settlement agreement. I mean, that's a legally enforceable agreement. So, I mean, that's a question. Maybe they say, oh, it's, we're going to supplement it and add more to it or something like that, but we don't know that.
Yeah, no, it's,
And the
I
same
mean,
thing-
I always wonder how all these projects get money, and then, they built the Hawaii Rookie Pool from the ground up all over again.
Oh,
And we
yeah.
can't get our park finished with the China shipping money.
It's a really sore point with me personally, because I thought it was an environmental justice issue. The poorest part of town and demographically is the area around 15th Street School. They could have put a pool down there. I mean, Hay Rookie Pool is like a couple hundred yards from the pool at the Olguin campus. Yeah.
No, that's the number one thing we hear around here, right? So many families went, my kids learned to swim in that pool, and, it just sits in total disrepair. And, and when with the Olympics coming up, right, no prospect of it ever getting better.
Are you talking about the Peck Park School?
Yeah.
Pool? Yeah.
I
mean, that's one of I'm on the same thing. They closed it down. They waited until the Hay Rookie Pool was up. They have another one. You can see almost from, if you're standing on Hay Rookie Pool, see the other pool that's over at the old Green thing. They're both beautiful pools, but they service the wealthier communities in San Pedro.
Yep.
I mean, Peck Park Pool service to everybody.
Yeah, not only that, our former Board of Education member, Vladovic, was really insistent that the Olguin campus pool be open to the public, and not only that it's heated. And he made them heat it so that the public could enjoy it. And then they turned around and funded the Hay Rookie Pool. Another item that's on the list that's up on the screen, Craig, is the Cabrillo Marine Aquarium Life Supports System. I know that as a neighborhood council, that was one of the priorities that we voted for. But there's an agreement between the city and the state settling what was called a nexus litigation back in the late 1970s, where the port agreed that it would pay 100% of the costs for the Cabrillo Marine Aquarium and for the Maritime Museum.
Mhm.
And it's done by a credit against the costs charged by the city for services the city provides to the Harbor Revenue Fund.
Mhm.
And I've thought for a long time that these kinds of costs for the life support system were appropriate for the port to pay for out of that agreement, and shouldn't come out of the, they shouldn't pay their obligation by charging it against the PAIP funds. So,
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Um, we need,
well, you and Tom are going to see that probably at the next council meeting. I think that's where this item is coming up. I'm hazy on it. Diana's told me, but I don't really remember it.
I've never heard that, but we'll see what comes up at the meeting and we can go forward. But my thing was, I did notice, which when we get to the next time, I'll point out, because it just seems like the things like the Cabrillo Marine Aquarium and the Marine Museum don't get any love, and everything gets done, and we're sitting here going, we don't have any cultural to talk about. We don't have art museums. I mean, all this money is coming out of the port, huge amount, and nothing seems to go into cultural things in our community.
Yeah, I think James Allen one time remarked that the Maritime Museum and Aquarium have basically become roadside attractions. It's kind of a pejorative for the kinds of things you see when you're out on the road.
Yeah, no, I like the Cabrillo Museum. I think they do a really good job. They have a real good, they do a lot of good things, but you go over across the bay to Long Beach and their museum is like off the top. And I'm saying, why can't we have a museum like that? It's not like the money isn't there.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, we don't have to do it the same way, but
No, but so many cities have revitalized. I think of the Boston Aquarium, you go up to Monterey Bay. I mean, yeah, it really could be a draw and a great thing. Los Angeles has this huge ability to use us to make the whole city convention, but there doesn't seem to be the vision or the will to to redevelop in a smart way. So I agree with you guys on this too.
Yeah, Craig, several months ago, I think when Tom first kind of poked his head up and said, "Hey, I'm around," I talked to him about if he would be willing to, get in the weeds on the PAIP structure, and how it's done and everything like that. And he said he would, and I don't think it's quite time yet, but it's getting close to the time. And I talked to Mike Galvin, who said that he would sit down with them and, help guide him through it, so that and provide him information, and also connect them with the two commissioners that are on the economic committee for the Board of Harbor Commissioners. Ed Renwick in particular, who is really a money guy, and find these holes. There's a couple of others that are there where they're, and as far as I'm concerned, they're draining the available funds that would otherwise be available for the public access projects.
Yeah, no, I mean, but I see that, I agree with you, and I hope Tom will be willing to do that. If there's anything where I can assist or help, let me know.
I have no problem doing it. I don't know. I gotta remember the Brown Act, I guess. We gotta be careful what we do together. But yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I definitely appreciate your help too, right? I'm new to all this, so I'm willing to get involved and start meeting the right people. So Craig, use me as you will.
Yeah, no, I mean, we can work on these projects and we can discuss it in these meetings. So it's the thing that's, I keep looking, when I looked at all this stuff and I see nothing here, I also see nothing, they spent all this money on with the West Harbor, and it's to the and it all goes to how do you put it, a for-profit venture, but there's nothing being spent in San Pedro that really would help us. I mean, and culturally and everything.
Craig,
Yes.
if I might, I've had my hand up.
I'm sorry, I
on
couldn't.
the computer. Well, I finally came up to this one because
When I'm on the share, it's hard to see.
I know. So I did want to make a couple of comments. The first one is that our council spent quite a long time developing input into the PAIP. And we went out and we had probably at least 100 members of the community that commented, and we gathered that input. And I think it would be helpful to you if you would review that. It is all on our website, and you could see what it is that our board recommended. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that Pat mentioned a letter that is, because all of this was done through planning. And so planning has done a letter on the PAIP that was approved at the last planning committee meeting, and will probably make some amendments prior to it going to the board in the December meeting. But it does some of the things that Pat was talking about. It also talks about how disappointed we were in the dollar amount, and it supports the concept that was raised by Commissioner Perosi to make this permanent. So that's all in a letter that will be going before our board. So I just wanted to point those two things out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment on something you just said?
Christian's hand's raised. I'm trying to see whether he can speak or not. Is that okay?
I tried to promote him to panelist and he declined it.
Well, he's showing as a panelist.
I was
but-
having some connection issues and I joined a few times, but I didn't ever get promoted. So no, I just wanted to let you know that I've been listening in. I'm here. So the meeting date is good, but if 6:30 start is possible, that'd be better. Because I get off at 6 right now, but other than that, I'm here and listening.
Okay. So okay, I'll look through that stuff and on the PAPE, and we'll go through that. Let's go on to item number one, which is
On the
Pat's
topic
letter.
of aquarium, I just want to show one kind of cool thing on the topic of aquariums.
Please. I'll stop my share.
This is I've shown this before in planning and land use, but this is something they're building in Australia, and I thought this would be so cool in San Pedro.
Yeah.
It's an underwater observatory you can walk into.
Yeah, that's cool.
You can imagine something. I mean, it almost looks like, kind of like the walkway by the breakwall in San Pedro. You can just imagine a pretty cool public access space like that, which would of course never get funded by the port, but would be really cool.
If we don't put, all I know is if we start proactively moving and pushing, we should be able to get something. And if we don't, I mean, they keep, we need to find the people who make decisions and start pumping them to doing these kinds of things. Showing people stuff like this, it moves us. But I mean, if we sit there and say, we could do this in San Pedro, think of how many people would come to see this.
Yeah. I have two other comments before we move on, if I may.
Please.
Well, one of them is the idea of having stuff in our area. I get that, and I understand that, and I know that Coastal thinks about that, it that way too. But by ordinance, all public facilities belong to all neighborhood councils, and so and are in the area of all neighborhood councils. The maps don't always, the drawings of the areas don't always show that. But that was a decision very early on, back in the early 2000s, after the charter was amended, because they thought that neighborhood councils would get together on area-wide concerns like transportation elements, recreation elements, parks and things like that, and public facilities like the port. And so sometimes I think we have to think about, it doesn't matter if something is down in, in the Ports of Call area, for example, or something like that. It still belongs to us as well as coastal and central. That's one thing. The other thing is you made a remark about something for benefit of private businesses. I think the agreement and the PIP money has been going to. Crap. How do I shut this thing Here you go. Probably catch it. Hey, so the other thing is that the agreement, the kind of the structure of the 2009 EIR and the and also the agreement between the waterfront developers and the port is the backbone infrastructure stuff that makes parcels more valuable and so forth is the port's responsibility. You got the same thing going on down in harbor in Cabrillo Marina Phase 2, and that's going to be coming up in the next 6 months for us to look at the environmental documents for 80,000 square foot parcels, as well as the new container or the new cruise terminal out there. So, you know, you got to kind of keep that in mind, that the infrastructure stuff, it may look like it's benefiting somebody and they may be taking it out of the PAIP.
Pat, in answer to your thing, I agree that we do need to comment on other stuff. The thing is it seems like we're spent so much time and effort commenting on stuff in coastal and central and in Wilmington, but we're not getting any attention for Northwest.
Okay.
And I think that's, you know, and it's, if you look at the PAPE, it's very obvious, you know, and if you look at, you know, what we're doing with the park, I think, you know, we've, you know, when I was treasurer and after, used to be always be, oh, we're doing this event in coastal or central, but a lot of the money wasn't being spent in Northwest. And nowadays, what I've been trying to say is, you know, if we don't start advocating and pushing our other partners on the neighborhood councils to advocate for Northwest, we're never going to see anything. Yeah. We're the thing is, oh, why worry about Northwest?
Well, I have a program that I eventually want to talk about in this committee, and that is, you know, coming up with a mitigation program list, because 4 items that are on, actually 5 items, well, 4 items on that list are quality of life things that I don't think they should be funded out of PAIP money, but the condition of the streets around the harbor and in Northwest too, Gibson Boulevard and Harbor Boulevard and Pacific Avenue, for example, the railroad horn noise, the aesthetics of the cranes, and the basementing of the utilities, particularly along Gibson Boulevard. You know, the port puts utilities underground in their terminals and then puts them in the middle of the sidewalk alongside a designated scenic highway, which is down Gibson Boulevard. So maybe we can bring those issues up in that program, because I think that, you know, adopting some mitigation things by all 3 neighborhood councils would put a lot of pressure on the port to remedy how they've behaved in the past. It's almost like redlining, Craig. I mean, they do things along the boundaries of the port that affect the local communities, to affect us without really caring about what the impacts are. They do it because they can save money. You know, railroad horn noise is one of them, and the basementing the utilities is another, and then the quality of the streets is a third.
If they see, you know, like they did all the improvements down, I still want to call it ports of call. And then
it's always going to be called that, isn't it?
Yeah. I sat there and I said, you know, oh, you know, you're talking about upgrading this and upgrading that and everything that for this project, but the quality of life on the other side of the town, you know, like you're saying, the gateway, by the way, I broke my wrist and had to have 4 stitches in my elbow because I got caught by the railroad tracks on Harbor coming back up on my bike, railroad tracks, and, you know, just holes in the road. And it's like, oh yeah, you got all these bike trails, but have you seen what the road looks like in those trails?
Yeah. Terminals are designed for 60,000 pound wheel loads, and then they dump those trucks out onto the streets in the port that is designed to 35,000 pound wheel loads, and then they flex on the railroad tracks like that, and they create those ruts and those little raised areas alongside the tracks that catch the bikes.
Yeah.
You know,
No, I
that's,
mean, I agree, but the thing I was thinking is they closed down all these railroad tracks, like the ones that crossed over there.
Mhm.
Why aren't they responsible for covering them up? Instead of leaving them there because they're closed, they literally put it out there. These are non-usable. And even if you drive out to, because I would ride my bike all the way out to Cabrillo, and when I
Mhm.
go through, I guess I call it the Four Corners over there by Alta Sea,
Yeah,
it's just covered with railroad tracks.
yeah.
And
Well, the
and they're
railroad,
not using them.
well, the railroad can be made to take them out, and all the rail lines south of Sepulveda belong to the two ports.
Mhm.
I don't know if you knew that, but what usually happens, I'm just getting experience. If I agree with you that they should take them out completely, because that's the only way to make them can make it completely safe,
Mhm.
and they should be made to do that. But what happens is that the railroads come back and say, well, how about if we just cover them up? We'll pave over them, but that doesn't do it, because they still then flex, and they get the pavement that covers the old tracks just goes to hell. Yeah,
I mean, because I think that's a two-pronged thing, because it's not just the port, because we need to talk to street services and what would be
yeah, public works.
public works, because they're, no matter what, they end up being the ones that handle it, but they're definitely not doing the road work I see here being done in other parts of LA.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. I think maybe we add that to the list of things that we need to sit down with them and talk about it.
On the tracks, I don't necessarily want them pulled out until we understand our connectivity options here. Some of them may be usable.
Right.
some of them are just, well, the ones that I'm talking about are mostly, the spurs that went off and then they cut them off. But I don't.
They had shown. I mean, originally the red car expansion was going all the way down on those piers.
Right. I think Craig is talking about the industrial spurs. I mean, industrial side tracks that come up right behind the loading docks, like the warehouses down by Alta Sea and Warehouse One. But you raise a good point on the connectivity, it seems to me too, because that's still an open issue. And hopefully the connectivity plan will address those.
I wouldn't want to give the port any excuse to rip up more tracks until we understand what we can get for public transit.
Yeah, because you're working on some stuff too for the extension of the Silver Line too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the extension on the Silver Line, last time I looked, was like 20 to 30 years out.
Well,
Are you seeing to get more on that, Jason?
it'll be here before you know it.
Well, we'll
I don't
see.
think I'll last that long, but
Plant the tree under which shade you'll never be able to enjoy, right?
yeah, no, when we go over the connectivity, when we were going over, the transportation stuff, and, they were talking about the light well projects. This was at least 7-8 years ago. They would come into us and they say, oh yeah, we're talking about 2040, 2050. And I'm sitting there going, I'm not going to be around. And I'm sitting there going, and I don't, they just don't want to continue anything here. They just don't come that close. But that's what I'm seeing.
I think Craig is, Jason, if I hear you right, you're saying don't give them an excuse to do nothing by pulling the tracks out now. Let's wait and see.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, we can look at it and see, and see if we can get certain ones like up on the dock that, that they wouldn't be using, or in areas that wouldn't connect up, and see if we can get them to cover that. But we can start looking at that at least.
Yeah, and I think if they make a decision that they're going to take a track out, certainly say, don't just cover them up, pull the tracks out, pull the ties out, so that you have a good surface. Yeah. If anything, that's going to convince them to make another use of the tracks, because that's the most expensive option they have. when they take something out of service. They really don't want to take the tracks and ties out.
Yeah, no, and
I'd rather cover them up.
those are the most dangerous places. I mean,
Oh, they are.
I'm to ride your bike over and you can fill them in your car.
Oh, yeah, I've crashed and burned down there at the junction of Pacific and Front Street on those tracks, because you come around that corner in the angle, you're just gonna, if you're not really careful, you go right in the groove where those tracks are.
Okay, let's get to your letter.
All right, can you pull that up?
Yeah. Are you seeing it?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Okay, are you guys, did you look?
I stopped.
Okay. Let's see if I'm getting my share here. Okay.
Oh, shut up, phone.
It listened to you. Look at that.
I got Alexa to listen to me most of the time, but
Oh. I need to, I don't even know what Alexa is. I know what it is. I have no idea how those things work.
oh, I have my lights, a lot of my lights in the house adjusted to it. So the problem is when I go to a room that I don't have and I want to talk to Alexa about turning the lights off, it doesn't work. Okay, so Pat, why don't you talk about your letter?
Okay, it's actually, it's kind of a joint, it's a joint effort. Tom and Jason and Gwen actually helped on this letter. The port has an MND out, a mitigated negative declaration that they want for a 14-acre parcel over on Terminal Island to take down the old Starkist cannery plant, which is vacant and deteriorating, and they want to then pave it and create a chassis, a container chassis repair facility and storage facility on it. This is a reissue. They issued it about a year ago, and they had so much pushback from tribal nations and the historical preservation people that they reissued it and went back and studied it. It's I think Tom measured it. It's like 3 inches thick. We actually looked at the written copy. It's really hard and
I went to the port to get it. It is huge.
yeah, they're not much fun to read, I'll tell you that. But we gleaned out of it these points that are here, and they're. I don't want to take up too much time on it, but you know.
Can I make comment?
Sure.
I didn't have much difficulty. I'm not being somebody who works in factory most of my adult life. I'm not real, industrial buildings aren't anything that thrill me or I have any nostalgia for. So what I was thinking is on that was, where we were talking about a small building off to the side or something like that, then we asked the port to fund a permanent exposition or some moving expositions on the fishing industry, and that they put into the Marine Museum and maybe have to go around the show. Because nobody really, my feeling is nobody's really going to go out to Terminal Island and go see some small display that they put in some museum there.
Yeah, there's a number of options that they can come up with if they want to. There's strong ties to the fishing industry in the Wilmington community, for example, and there's a lot of sentiment for preserving the history of the Japanese fishing village over there. I mean, they could put it, like you said, a marine museum would be a maritime museum would be a very good place to preserve the history through exhibits and photos and things like that. And that's, the California Historic Preservation Act permits preserving the history. You don't have to preserve the old facility or anything, even if it's a designated historical landmark, you can still preserve the history through things like photos and so forth. It doesn't mean that they would put a small building in that area. They could put it elsewhere or not at all, just serve it with displays and photos and all. So they'll have some options if they.
I mean, that was my big push there, because like I was
Yeah.
sitting there saying, you know, we have it, but nobody's gonna go out there.
Yeah,
And I am thinking on the other side was maybe, the other thought was maybe this is a way we can get him to preserve the Japanese fishing village, is to put a fishing museum, a canning and fishing museum over there. Because
Yeah.
they were basically, that's where the fishing industry started, was with
To
the
me-
Japanese fishermen.
Well, to me, those both of these suggestions really are in the category of mitigations. You know, you're doing a project here. You're taking something down, you can mitigate it by preserving the history of it in certain ways. I mean, and both of those ideas work as far as I'm concerned. I think that doing it as a suggestion in the last paragraph, you know, saying perhaps the port should consider moving one of the small buildings or portion to a site. Could do it. I guess it is pretty specific in terms of preserving the building, but they'll read that as a mitigation request, and maybe they'll come up with something. I don't know. The main part of the comment letter, though, really has to do with something I think is
I don't think I have
probably more-
any problem with the rest of it. That was the only thing I thought you might be willing to change.
okay.
So we have a motion.
Well, I want to talk about adding one thing to it. Jason and Tom, you're probably going to tear your hair out at this, because we worked so hard on coming up with this thing in this form. But the cover for the repair facility area, storage area, there's a kind of a cover over it, an open air kind of cover on it. And I was wondering if we wanted to add in here that they should put solar panels on it, you know, to provide the power for the facility. What do you think?
I'm never going to be opposed to something along those lines.
I
I
think
mean,
that-
well, let's make the motion to accept that. You need to make an amendment to change the letter.
Yep.
Yeah. So you want to make a
Yeah,
motion?
but we hadn't made the motion for the original. So motion to accept the letter from Pat,
Well-
seconded by,
Or do we do it that way, or do we amend the letter and then accept the amended letter? I don't know what.
I usually make a motion and we had the letter already, so we accept I would
Okay,
say
well,
Then
let's
there's
just-
discussion and then a proposed amendment.
Okay, then I'll second that.
motion, second from Tom or
Yeah.
Jason? Okay, Tom, all in favor? Okay, now amendment, now second, we want to do discussion. So you want to amend the letter?
Well, I want to put I think it would probably be in that last paragraph where we're talking about preserving the historical thing. Can maybe, let's see. Maybe after the paragraph, put in a paragraph that says, in addition, we recommend that any structures constructed on the parcel should be solar enabled and solar, I don't know, what's the words, Jason, to use?
Should be powered by renewables, e.g. solar.
Okay, so Craig, do you have the ability to put the language in there? Or? On here.
Just, why don't you just update it and put it on? We agreed to that
Okay.
language. I've written it down in my notes. I just updated and
Mr.
we
Chair,
can
I have
move
a
it forward to the
comment.
board. Yeah.
Christian?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, instead of renewables or just an extra add-on to renewables, I would say zero emission, just so that so they don't default to natural gas or like near zero stuff. So it's actually like really
Okay.
zero emission.
That works for me. How about you, Jason?
Well, solar is zero emission and so is wind. Gas is emission, so by definition, zero emission is.
So say about solar and other zero emission
Yeah, I mean, natural gas
modalities.
is not a renewable, so I mean, that rules it out immediately anyway.
Okay.
It doesn't really, I don't think it's that important. I mean, you could just say solar, because they're not gonna put a wind turbine there. That's the only other real option.
I agree. I mean,
We'll come up with the language and then submit it.
just as long as it's along that lines, I think there's no problem. Okay, so,
And then what
I'll-
about your amendment, Craig? Or we can do that, but I don't want your idea to get lost. So I'll agree to this amendment.
okay. We agree to this amendment. You want to do the other amendment also, which is just to change it to like, that they do something at the Maritime Museum?
Or at least discuss it, right? I just want to throw that out. So, what do the other guys think? But I at least wanted to hear it and give it a fair shot. This is the kind of way I'm used to in resolutions where we normally amend it a little bit.
Well,
Moving to that site, when it says moving to a different site, the different site could be the Maritime Musician or museum location.
maybe how about adding just a sentence after the word preserved, it says, other methods of preserving the history of the site should be considered.
I would, my thing is, I'd like to see something really clear, like we should do, the port should be supporting a permanent expedition.
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 The harder I try and say this word, the worse it's gonna get. So at the Maritime Museum, and maybe do enough, support and work with them on it. I mean, I would like to push them in a certain direction.
Sure.
Well, I understand that. I think that the effect would actually be the opposite, just from my experience in working with the commissions over the years and so forth. That if you get them to buy the idea of preserving it, they'll refer to staff. Staff will talk to the NCs and so forth and come up with something for it. But if you give them something specific that you say you want it at, at XYZ location or something, and I think this may be actually too finite as it is. If you give them
I
something,
mean, because we were saying here, perhaps the port should consider moving to one of the small buildings.
yeah, that's even maybe more finite than we want to. I know Gwen was concerned about it. She wanted to preserve the whole building at first, and I thought, they're never going to do that. So if you give them something too finite, the bottom line is that they say, oh, we're not going to do that, and they just reject the whole thing out of it, and their minds turn off on it.
I mean, perhaps we should say the port should consider doing doing something to preserve the memorabilia and photos and the
In a
history of
permanent
the fishing
exhibition.
industry.
Yeah, so take that last sentence and you're saying and do that. Yeah, we can come up with some language on that. Do you want to?
That would be, I would make that motion also to make
Okay.
that change. Would that be,
I'll
I'll
second.
second it. Oh, somebody else got it.
okay?
Okay, well,
Are you gonna make the change in these, Pat?
if I can, I will do so. Yeah, I can do it. I've got it. I think I've got it.
If not, let me know. I'm not as good at wording. We could add it to Jason or Tom.
Here's what I'll do. I'll come up with a draft and I'll send it to Jason and Tom, who helped write this letter. How about that? Because they got a better memory than I do. I've already forgotten what it was we were talking about. Adding to
Well, yeah, if we're gonna do that, I'm not, as a secretary, I'd like it written so we faithfully make the changes. I wasn't taking notes to change it, or we should just edit it while we're here. Like I can screen share it and just put the changes on the screen.
okay.
We can be done with
Okay,
it.
let me stop my share. I'll put you on on sharing. Okay, I'll put you as a host.
Find the paper.
Okay, I'm now making you a co-host.
All right. All right, so are we gonna date that'll be the neighborhood council, we're saying that, so keep the date there. All right, so let's take, oh, you can't see it. I forgot to do it. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Right.
on page, go to page 2.
Yep.
Can we address that last sentence in that last full paragraph? Perhaps the board should consider.
I would be a little more direct. I don't always like the wishy-washy, so how about the port should consider?
Next paragraph down,
Next paragraph.
yeah. Second sentence there.
Are we going to take out the second sentence and put this into place?
Yeah, Tom, can you just amend the second sentence? Just
Okay.
for that one?
Oh, I see. Okay.
Take out perhaps in the port. Yeah,
Okay.
good. And take out moving one of the small buildings or a portion to a site. Just take that out and just say, and let's talk about what we want them to do. What we want them to do, if I understand correctly, is we want them to find a way to preserve the history in some appropriate manner. Yeah,
Just that and delete the rest of this?
yeah, I like that. Yeah,
As a public exhibition or something along those lines.
yeah,
Okay.
And I like that.
yeah, I'll go for that. And then the next, following that is in a sentence that says, maybe it's another paragraph, really. In addition,
Then we're not lastly anymore, by the way.
I think with the in addition, doesn't that go up further?
Yeah. in addition,
That we do where we're making comments about the building?
well,
I can't move
the
your,
next thing is the renewable energy and zero emission solar stuff.
shouldn't that be in the bullet points?
No, those are the
Those are questions.
Those
Yeah,
are
those are-
questions. So we suggest, so just above, we suggest the growth in doing aspects of proposed project.
What if we put it here? We put the renewable thing as the second last paragraph.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's right.
okay.
Additionally or in addition.
There you go.
Addition, the new construction or the new buildings.
The new, are they talking about building new buildings there or?
Well, there's some kind of structure with a roof on it. I think, I picture in my mind a bunch of pillars and a.
I thought it had what they were talking about sounded more like, an open shed.
But in addition, any
Yeah,
use on the property should be powered by solar. Should incorporate the use of solar panels.
Well, maybe if we put incorporate solar panels and then any energy use should be zero emission or.
Solar panels are zero emission. That's fine.
well, maybe,
And the solar's not going to generate enough power, at night, right? For example, so I
But
think
we
just
could be
saying
saying- we
put
could-
solar
we
on
could- we could be saying two things. We're saying put solar panels up, but that might not be enough. Like my house, even though I have like 32 panels, my kids use so much, it's not enough. But it'd be nice, like I'm not close enough to tide, right? So there could be tidal energy, or we could still be encouraging the whole facility to be, carbon neutral, right? Some of the projects
Right.
I'm looking at, like with the blockchain, right? I tend to invest in the ones that are carbon neutral. They're not using dirty coal in China. They're in Iceland, using energy that would be wasted otherwise.
The
Well,
port has their
wasn't
own
this-
power plant on site. I'm not really sure, but
well, just put the words be carbon neutral after where you are right now, Tom, just put,
if
Is that one word? Let's see. Let's see my spelling here.
there.
Okay.
I would almost say
And-
zero
Mhm.
emission might be more appropriate.
Well, I'm indifferent. I was just trying to keep the, and that's why I wanted you guys here. I don't want anybody yelling at me because I didn't remember it right.
Well, carbon neutral is a trickier thing to measure. Zero emissions is pretty obvious. It's not
So-
it's not spewing out something uncombustible on the property.
Should be zero emission, or is it plural, zero emissions?
Zero emission, I think.
It's
They'll
because
get
they're
the
gonna be,
idea.
it's not gonna be that way because they're gonna be moving trucks in and out of there. They're
Well-
planning to use, so.
How about strive to be, or?
Well, they look at, they're gonna be, in the description of the project, they talked about trundling those chassis back and forth from neighboring terminals by,
Mhm.
if it says zero emission or something like that, then they're gonna start using electric yard tractors is what they'll start doing to move those chassis down rather than a Peterbilt. So I think I like this idea of zero emission.
Well, and I've done a tour and they showed me 3 different things they're trying, 2 electric and one, the guy for trucks was really big on hydrogen. So those are zero emission, right? They just emit water.
Hydrogen,
Well, the other thing,
hydrogen fuel is a big problem, but because it all comes from fossil fuels, it's stupid. Anyway.
well, can we go back up to the first part, taking the words, the new structures, can we make that instead, any use of the property instead?
Yeah, I like it much better. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah, I like that. I'm good with this language.
Let's see. Well, listen here. Any use of the property should incorporate solar panels, and because energy use does not necessarily mean a vehicle moving in and out. We want to make sure that any vehicular activity should be zero emission.
Yeah, I mean, we don't even need the energy use that way, any uses related to or any activity related to use of the property should strive to be zero emission.
I
How does
wouldn't
that
say
work?
strive, just specify it.
Yeah, and any activity related to use of the property should be,
Related to its use, because we've already got property, we're redundantly using the same word.
okay,
Any use of the property should incorporate solar panels, and any activity related to its use should be zero emission.
yes.
Okay.
There you go.
Craig, you okay with this?
I'm fine. You did a good job.
Can you see it, Christian? I don't know if you can see it. I can't see you. I don't know.
Yes, I can see it. Thank you.
Okay,
It would
so
take us approximately 20 years if we were collaborating to write a book.
that's why I hated collaborating on this.
You guys are a joy to work with, I tell you that. I've never seen
You're signing it, Christian. I was told it's on behalf of the council, so hopefully I have that right. You should, I want you in particular to pay attention. Because
No, that's good. I like that.
And I've interacted with Nicole and Siza now. I don't know Lisa Wonder, but anybody else that should be copied? I'm just getting to know people at the board.
Now it's gonna go to Chris Cannon, just the person it should be directed to.
Yeah. No,
By the way, I got a notice today from Nicole and Sizo that they have issued an extension of time to December the 21st, which means that we have to have the meeting on the 13th. You know, if for some reason the neighborhood council can't meet on the 13th, we're gonna either have to get an extension into January or submit this as a comment of the port committee.
well, if this gets on the agenda early, can we all just kind of agree to try to get to a quorum? Right, that's the problem. Or do we know? Christian?
Well, let's finish this off. Let's
Gotta
Yeah.
vote on it.
let's vote on it. All in favor, we have a first and a second, all in favor of this is amended.
You're supposed to, yeah, you gotta, because we're on Zoom, we have to do it by roll call, Craig.
Okay. No, well, not necessarily.
I know it's a pain.
Is there any negative?
Oh, one thing, somebody, Kathleen Martin has a note. I'm just looking, hydrogen renewable energy is the correct terminology. Should you be interested in using that language? Do we want to consider that from the public attending?
No,
I don't want to ignore it.
I just answered it.
Okay.
Hydrogen is it's not a viable alternative.
Well, I think it's probably.
I have an
incorporated.
anonymous attendee. So, okay.
But I didn't want to ignore the public at least. I mean, I wanted
Yeah.
to hear
No,
that.
I was actually. I
Oh,
was
then
typing,
Kathleen, yeah, she's at the bottom.
I
Okay.
was typing an answer as you mentioned.
Okay.
Isn't it covered by the language? There, any activity related should be zero emission, isn't it covered by that? If they choose to do it by,
Diana, are you wanting to talk?
she's
It's-
downstairs, I don't know if she's on her computer or what
It's-
she's
it's
doing.
co-
She raised her
covered.
hand.
I'm
Oh,
on, oh, no, I didn't know my hand was raised. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That was good.
Mine's still up from like, half an hour ago. Let me put that down.
Kathleen, do you want to say anything? Because you're on here, you didn't raise your hand, so, but you did make that comment.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know if there was a public comment period. Yeah, this looks like really good. I'm really excited that you guys have put this together. Yeah, I just was, someone had brought up the renewables regarding hydrogen, and I just spoken with Richard Havnick on it and had a little bit of an understanding that most hydrogen is from fossil fuels, but in fact, there is hydrogen that is made from renewables. So if you guys were interested in using any of that language, I just gave you the correct terminology.
Oh,
to
thank you.
indicate that was the only reason. But
What little is made from renewables is made from electrolysis, which is a very inefficient way to produce it using electricity. That electricity is better used in a lot of other ways, including storing it in a battery for motion. The overall efficiencies are terrible. It's like 30% efficiency to by the time you take the energy content that comes from the sun and getting it to the motive power of the vehicle through hydrogen electrolysis, where battery is like somewhere around 90%.
gotcha. Thank you.
Kathleen, is there
They're-
any chance?
They're actually working on better catalysts to make hydrogen production efficient, but there's nothing outside of a lab right now that's producing anything that's useful from a reducing overall emission standpoint. You're better off storing it in a battery than you are trying to convert it to a gas, and you have to compress hydrogen. It's a very expansive gas. You have to compress it at super high pressure. And then, by the way, hydrogen is the most simple molecule, right? It leaks. There's nothing that can fully contain it. So it leaks out over time. So it's a real problem to store hydrogen. That's a massive issue
Then-
as well.
Christian, can you take this meeting for a couple minutes? My wife just came home. She's been gone for a week, so I'd like
Hello,
to just say
yes.
hello to her. Okay.
I got my hand raised, so I wanted to ask Kathleen a question.
So are we on the vote? Did we finish the vote on the amendment, or are we taking the final vote now?
We have to do a roll call.
We have
We're
to do a
taking a
roll call.
for the vote. Right as one of
Okay,
our voting members left.
okay, Mr. Norman, are you acting as secretary? Do you want to do the roll call then?
Oh, I guess I am. All right, so Chair Goldfarb, well, I shouldn't start with him. President Guzman
Yes,
and Jason Herring
Yes.
and Pat Nave
Yes,
and Craig Goldfarb. Oh, sorry, Craig Goldfarb. You
Yes.
voted yes or no on the letter yes, and then Thomas,
Yes.
I'll vote yes, so it's unanimous, right? Those are, I don't know the committee well. Is Kathleen a member of the committee?
no,
no.
she's co-chair of the port committee in coastal, and so I wanted to ask her, is your committee going to take this up, or have they already done so? And if not, would you like a copy of this as an example of what the port committee in Northwest has done?
I will definitely take a copy, please. I would appreciate that.
I'll email it to you, Kathleen.
Sounds good. And then I will send this to our group so a decision can be made. I personally like it.
Can you hang around for the next item on the agenda?
Yes, I'll be here for the remainder of the meeting, please.
Okay.
I'm gonna send you this new version, Craig.
Okay, great, thank you. And I'll have that updated into the file.
Great meeting, by the way.
Thank you, Kathleen. Discussion, the next item is discuss and establish a protocol to respond to port environmental documents. It's getting 7:30. Can we make this a quick one and push it over to the next agenda, next meeting?
I think so, but maybe, a simple acquiescence in what the idea is. I can do it in 2 minutes. The idea is related to the time limits that the port puts on responses. You know, there's a conflict between Charter Section 907, which says neighborhood councils should have a reasonable opportunity to provide comment before any board or commission in the city takes an action. And then, there's time limits that are in the environmental laws for comment. So for example, on this one, there's a 30 days in the law for mitigating negative decks, but that's not enough time to get to committees and to neighborhood council boards. So what I was thinking is that it might be better to have an ad hoc kind of group that works on these comments and then takes them to the committees, to the port committees for action. Ultimately, I'd love to see the port committees work together on responses to environmental documents. I think we'd have a great deal more weight. So that's basically it. And we kind of did this with this one, Craig, Tom, and Jason, and then Gwen also contributed to it to be able to, put this together quickly. So that's the idea. I don't know that it needs a vote or anything like that. And if you want to have it, schedule it over for further discussion, that's fine.
I think, a lot of these things we need to start discussing how we're going to handle it and where we're going to go from. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next item, which is additional agenda items. And some of this is going to be, okay, I will write up the motion on the purple air to go over that for the next meeting. And just that we purchased 4 of them, and I'll put the information in there. And I'll send that out. So if my language isn't correct, you can correct me.
So, excuse me, by next meeting, you mean the next board meeting?
Next board meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
We have to, well, actually, it'll have to be for the
13th of December.
No, it'll have to be for the executive board meeting, and I have to try and get it out for the before that to finance. So, but it's not something that if we don't get it this month, we can do it next month. So it's nothing's going anywhere.
It's true.
Okay, we want to go, I think, for the next, so that's okay. We want to continue studying the information on our item number 4. Or number 4, no, I mean 5 on the 150 miles and the pollution. Pat, you're going to send us the information. We'll look for it too and see what we can get. We'll continue on bring the PAPE up again in the following, and we'll look at the stuff from the land use. Okay. Is there any other items that right now you want discussed?
Yeah, I got a couple. Well, I want to clarify one thing on handling the environmental comments and responses and things like that. I think last meeting we talked about establishing you as the nexus point, I guess, to track the environmental documents. I think weren't you going to get on the postcard list to get the notices and then to prepare a tracking chart so you keep track of where the environmental comment responses were? That's what I recall.
I don't recall that, but I'll take your word for it.
The
Coast Guard list?
Well, the port maintains a list. Tom and I are on it. what the port does is when they issue anything, it can be a scoping meeting notice or, you know, a notice of an MND issuance or anything like
Where
that.
is this? Where do I get on this list?
You just call Chris Cannon or
Okay.
Nicola Inciso and ask to be on it, or send them an email, nick@inciso@portla.org.
Yeah, I went to the port to get that big book to do my research. And then she added me to the list. So yeah, in CISO, I'd recommend doing it. It's just the port, not the Coast Guard. And I've only been on the list 2 days, so I haven't really gotten anything yet, but
Yeah, Jason, I think it'd be great if you got on that, got the postcard list too. It's duplication, but I think we gotta have
What
one
is it?
person.
What particular is it?
It's just the notice postcard.
Yeah, no, but what's the name of it?
I don't know what environmental notices. I don't know exactly what you're talking about, though.
I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up, Craig. Seeing I just
Okay.
got put on
I
this.
when I call and ask people questions, I don't want them sitting there asking me, what are you
No,
talking
I know.
about?
The security guard,
Understood.
it took me a while to get the thing that was waiting for me right by the security guard. I was like, I know it's that there. It's Nicole and Siza. So you need to know exactly how to ask.
Yeah. The thing that Tom was talking about, I mean, getting on the postcard list, you can do with an email or a phone call. But what Tom and I also did was to get a hard copy because it's just too hard. It's like 280 pages long or something like that. It's just gigantic. So
It'd be time for me to go. You hear my wife? Sorry about the TV.
Oh, yeah, so, but that's an optional thing. You don't always want to have those things. But we've got 3 or 4 really important and are going to be
I've
controversial.
been tracking it on the web because they post all the
Yeah,
the environmental stuff there, but that'll help me follow up, because if I forget to look, I'll have an email on it.
Oh, Greg, I sent you the email exchange with Nicole. She just calls it the mailing list.
Okay.
So you
What's the second thing you wanted, Pat?
well, at some point or another, I want to initiate a discussion on mitigations that we want to insist on. And this is something for all 3 neighborhood councils or 5 neighborhood councils, including Harbor City. And I've got them in my mind kind of categorized in 3 groups, but I think that it needs the input of everybody in establishing what the list looks like, Craig. So I'm hopeful it can be done in a fairly short amount of time, but I think and it's certainly going to be a list that gets added to from time to time. But it's going to need everybody's thinking power. For example, there's one item that says, hey, look, anything that a tenant or an applicant for a project can't do on their site, no more of these overriding consideration statements. Instead, find someplace else in the port to pick up the negative impacts, the air quality or traffic or whatever, pick up those things. And then there's a group of kind of reparative sort of things, and those can be mitigation things too. Things that the port has done. I have a list of 4 having to do with streets.
Can we move through this?
Yeah, I don't want to go through the whole thing right now. One of them, though, is sure.
I mean, yeah, you know what I'm saying. It's 7:47, so.
I understand. One is going to be the containers on lots that the port owns all through Wilmington. That's going to get people's attention.
Okay. Jason, you have anything?
Nothing besides I brought up the purple air thing. So that was my.
Okay. Okay, Thomas.
No, it's my wife's birthday tomorrow, and she wants me to end. So
Good luck.
Okay.
Okay, so I will, yeah, there will be other things that are showing up. I mean, and we need to take by-side trunks. So I'll look forward to, we had a good meeting. Is there anything else that anybody wants to discuss? Because I would like to adjourn.
The only thing, my only request is, Craig, if possible, can you also give me the information so I can add myself to the postcard list or mailing list?
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
All right, good night,
opposed?
everybody. Good meeting.
Thank you. Y'all have a good day.
Good night.
Thank
Okay.
you, everyone. Perfect meeting.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.